Hi, I'm Eric from RockyMountainATVMC.com, and today we're taking a quick look at the Polaris RZR XP Turbo S. There's never been a more exciting time in the side-by-side market. It's been really fun to watch Can-Am come out and give Polaris a run for their money, and now Textron's coming out with their new models, and it's just, there's only really one winner in this, and it's us, the consumer. There's never been a better time to be able to go out there and have a side-by-side that's perfect for what you like to do and how you like to do it. Now, with all that said, we're just going to do a quick walk around of this Turbo S. And Polaris is actually calling this thing the Beast. And from what we can see, it's going to be definitely at the top of the food chain. When it first came out, I'm not going to say I was unimpressed, because I was definitely impressed with how it looked and it was wider. I was absolutely hoping for something more. But once I started checking down the list, I started seeing that all the changes they had made, and it's almost a completely new machine. And that's exactly what I was looking for. If you follow us, you know that we did some racing last year, and we just had a standard turbo, and all the things that we learned and that we broke and that we had to improve, I'm going down the list of all the improvements on this machine, and I'm checking them off. I'm like, it's got, you know, just real quick, we'll run into some of the things that they've changed. So it still has 168 horsepower. They didn't change the engine. They changed the mapping a little bit. They're trying to take into account the 32-inch tires, right? And so they had to change that mapping to get off the line a little faster. But now we go into the durability part, and that's what I'm talking about with the racing, is that it has stronger axles. It has stronger high clearance A-arms. It's a thicker material, thicker wall material, and actually larger diameter. It has stronger trailing arms, the radius rods, the spherical ball ends, so the rod ends, they're huge, all the hardware is big, everything is just really durable on this car. Another improvement that we're really liking is the new front differential. So they're claiming it's 2 times larger and has 3 times the impact strength of the old front differential. Plus, it's rubber isolated, so it's isolating some of that vibration that you get, that you might be familiar with if you've been in some of these XPs. They also did a couple changes. The CVT system has better cooling, power steering has more strength, little things like that. So what it's all adding up to is a very impressive machine. So we've talked about all the suspension arms and everything else and how those have been strengthened, but let's talk about the actual shocks themselves. So they're using the dynamic system. We're a little bit familiar with that from the dynamics cars from last year, but it's an awesome system. So what it is it's a Fox internal bypass shock. So it's a high quality, the performance is just off the charts, how cool these shocks are. But instead of clickers, it actually has a little servo motor on it. And that servo motor is controlled by the dynamic system. And that dynamic system takes inputs from speed, throttle position, braking, actually how the machine is. If it's pitched one way or the other, it actually even has, so when you go airborne and the suspension tops all the way out, it immediately stiffens all the suspension. So when you land, it soaks up the landing. And you know, it's another one of those things that I'm like, yeah, whatever, until you actually get out in one of these dynamics cars. It's amazing. Okay, next on the list, you know, there's Polaris used some different marketing. They're saying that these machines have 25 inches of usable travel. That's a little misleading, a little confusing. So to get to the bottom of it, you have the front suspension has 19 inches of travel, the rear suspension has 21 inches of travel, and what they're talking about when they're talking about usable travel is it's actually when this suspension is completely stuffed, when it's completely compressed, you still have 4 inches of ground clearance, from the bottom of the skid plate to the ground. Previous models, other models, different brands, when they're completely compressed, the frame rails and the skid plate are basically sitting on the ground. So that's where that 25 inches is coming from. So moving on to the interior, has a couple of improvements as well. One of the main ones, most noticeable, is that they've moved the instrument cluster so you can see it through the new Sparco steering wheel. So it's right dead center. You can see it right through the steering wheel. It does come stock with 4-point harnesses. It also has the ride command system. And those familiar with the ride command, it's been around for a couple years. It's got a reverse camera, it's got GPS, it has your audio controls in it, has GoPro controls in it. It's a really slick system. All right, that wraps up all the improvements, the major changes. Now we're gonna go out, put it through its paces, and we'll let you know what we think. Well, we've spent most of the day in this thing, and I gotta say, it is one sweet ride. So, you know, a couple things. Want to just recap. Number one, we talked about the horsepower, and it feels quite a bit stronger than my 17 turbo, and I think it is just because of just the programming and maybe a little bit of the clutching. The 32s, you don't feel that they're 32-inch tires. It feels great. Durability, really hard to test in one day, do some durability testing, but we did. We hit things hard. We tried to maybe expose extra squeaks and, you know, check things out. I can't really see anything that's reared its head yet. That's probably down the road. Going on to the interior. The interior is great. So I really did like the instrument cluster between the steering wheel, through the steering wheel. I did have issues seeing it sometimes. I kind of like my steering wheel a little bit lower, and sometimes it was a little hard to see, but I could always get the job done for sure. The new shape of the dash is really nice. And then the dynamics. So this is probably the longest I've spent in a dynamics car, and man, it was awesome. You could switch it on the fly. So we got into some choppy areas. I was able to go to the comfort setting, smooths it right out. You run it in the sport most of the time, and then we started jumping towards the end of the day. You just hit that on firm, and man, it is amazing the difference that makes. And probably one of my favorite parts of that is cornering. You can really feel the outside of the car stiffen up under cornering, and I think it just makes it quite a bit safer and a lot more fun. But anyways, if you like content like this, make sure and subscribe to our channel. Let us know what you guys think. Make sure and comment below, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks.